With that, let me begin to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Michael Salla. If I can find my glasses. Dr. Salla is a pioneer in the development of exopolitics, along with Stephen Bassett, which is the scholarly study of the main actors, institutions, and processes associated with the extraterrestrial presence that is not acknowledged to the general public, elected officials, or the mass media. His groundbreaking Exopolitics, Political Implications of Extraterrestrial Presence presents the first scholarly framework for understanding the political implications of the extraterrestrial presence. Dr. Salla is an internationally recognized scholar in international politics, conflict resolution, and U.S. foreign policy, and is the author-editor of an additional 4 books, including A Hero's Journey Toward the Second American Century, Essays on Peace, Why the Cold War Ended, and Islamic Radicalism, Muslim Nations and the West. He has also authored more than 70 articles, chapters, and book reviews on peace, ethnic conflict, and conflict resolution. He has held academic positions in the School of International Service and the Center for Global Peace, American University in Washington, D.C., the Department of Political Science, Australian National University in Cambria, Australia from 94 to 96, and the Elliott School of International Affairs at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. He has a PhD in government from the University of Queensland, Australia, an MA in philosophy from University of Melbourne, Australia. He has conducted research and fieldwork in ethnic conflicts in East Timor, Kosovo, Macedonia, Sri Lanka, and organized peacekeeping initiatives involving government officials and participants from these conflicts. He will talk today about the Majestic 12 group and their potential relation to the JFK assassination. Please help me welcome Dr. Michael Salla. Okay, there he is.
Thank you, Ryan. Well, thanks, Ryan, for that introduction. I'm really happy to be back here at the UFO Crash Retrieval Conference. It's been, I think, 2 or 3 years since the last time I was here, and it's very appropriate that I'm here to talk about this topic because so much of the material that I use in this topic I really owe thanks to the work of Dr. Robert Wood and Ryan Wood in terms of investigating the Majestic documents. And I will be referring to several of the documents that I think are very important in giving us background and some idea as to what was really happening during the Kennedy administration. I really got interested in the Kennedy assassination due to my work on the Eisenhower administration. I've been very interested in President Eisenhower and his relations with extraterrestrial technologies and civilizations. There's a lot of material on that. In the course of doing that research, I came up with the transition between Eisenhower and Kennedy as a very important phase of this whole issue concerning presidential involvement on the extraterrestrial issue. And then I really was fascinated when I saw some of the latest Majestic documents that the Woods team have been able to investigate and put up on their website, and things became very clear then, especially in light of some of the historical documents from the Kennedy administration, from the Eisenhower administration, that really pinpoint exactly what was happening behind the scenes. And I think, like so much of the work that goes into understanding UFOs, extraterrestrials, and different administrations, so much happens behind the scenes, and that often it's difficult to really appreciate the magnitude of it until many decades later, when some of these documents emerge, either through FOIA requests or through the leaked documents that have made their way through to the Majestic Documents website. So with that, let me begin then. I'm going to be looking at the timeline and the political analysis of President Kennedy's efforts to declassify UFO files and the alleged MJ-12 assassination directive that is pretty central to the whole question of exactly what happened at the end of Kennedy's efforts. But to begin, it really is important to look at how President Eisenhower viewed the management of the UFO files, the documents that concerned extraterrestrial life, extraterrestrial technologies, and what his views were and what he would have passed on, because there is a transition between every presidential administration. And in that transition, the outgoing president, kind of gives a briefing really to the incoming president about what he sees is the challenges confronting the president, and just kind of primes them as to what it is that they need to do, what areas they need to be aware of, and some of the challenges. And it's very important to understand that President Eisenhower was really a very patriotic American, probably as patriotic as they come, a 5-star general, commander of the US forces in Europe during the Second World War, just such an illustrious man, and really someone that had at his core the best interest of the American society. And so I don't think there would be any question in my mind that he would have passed on to his successor what he thinks would have been the really important challenges, the threats facing the United States, to ensure that the United States maintained its status and would maintain its sovereignty given the very challenging international political climate at the time. And so what was the main challenge that President Eisenhower would have talked over with the incoming President Kennedy? What would have been the thing that, in those private sessions, media isn't invited, so these are very private sessions. You know, what is it that Eisenhower would have told Kennedy? We don't really have much historical data on what happened in those meetings. It's very confidential. But I think it's pretty clear, given what I will be discussing, what I think Kennedy was told by Eisenhower in those meetings. What was the big challenge, according to Eisenhower? I think he basically laid it out to the American public during his farewell address on January 17, 1961. Quote, "In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes," end quote. So this is pretty important stuff. I mean, he really sees there is great danger here posed by the military-industrial complex, and that it really did pose a threat to the liberties and the democratic processes of the United States. So this is the big threat, and there's no doubt in my mind that Eisenhower would have talked to Kennedy about what it was specifically he was really alluding to here. I mean, the military-industrial complex is an allusion to something of great potential disruption to the American system. And so he's alluding to something. So, you know, do you think he would have, in those private sessions with Kennedy, kind of spelt it out? You know, what exactly do you mean by the military-industrial complex? I think he would have spelt it out. I'm pretty certain he did, actually. So what was it he told Kennedy? Well, one of the people that actually served under President Eisenhower was Stephen Lufkin, who worked for US Army Signals Intelligence in the Eisenhower administration, was at Camp David. He worked with Eisenhower and actually talked with Eisenhower, even though he was a junior officer at the time. And he was pretty clear exactly what it was Eisenhower was alluding to. And this is what Lufkin said, quote, "When he said the main thing we have to fear is the military-industrial complex, he wasn't kidding. And he had the UFO subject matter we are just talking about in mind. He was quite explicit about that." So clearly, if Lufkin is correct, and I believe he is, I mean, he served under Eisenhower and he knows what was happening in that administration. The big concern Eisenhower had was the UFO subject and how it was being mishandled, and the loss of presidential executive authority over classified UFO files. So he definitely discussed with Kennedy the dangers posed by the military-industrial complex, and specifically gave a warning to Kennedy over how the UFO issue was taken out of presidential authority and was being mishandled. So this is pretty heavy stuff to tell an incoming president that, you know, probably the most important national security issue facing the country is out of presidential control. And he was really worried, you know. I mean, Eisenhower's telling Kennedy, I'm really worried